What type of bearings are general use in reciprocating engines? Plain, roller, and ball bearings. Plain bearings are generally used for crankshafts, camshafts, and connecting rods. Roller bearings primarily used as crankshaft main bearings, and ball bearings are used for supercharger impeller shaft bearings and crankshaft thrust bearings on large radial engines. What is an indication that primer is leaking or open during engine operation? The engine will not idle properly. What are the main parts of reciprocating engine accessory section? Case and gear drivetrain. Define the term thermal efficiency in regard to aircraft engines. It is the ratio of net work produced by the engine to chemical energy supplied in the form of fuel. What are the four combustion chambers? Can annular, and reverse flow annular types. What prevents burning of the liner walls in can type combustion chambers? Louvers are provided along the axial length of the liners to direct a cooling layer of air along the inside wall of the liner. What is the location and function of the diffuser section in a turbine engine? The diffuser is the divergent section of the engine located between the compressor section of burner cans. Its function is to change high velocity compressor discharge air to static pressure. What is the purpose of the nozzle diaphragm or turbine nozzle? The turbine nozzle prepares the combustion mass airflow to drive the turbine rotor. First, they change a portion of the heat and pressure energy to velocity energy. The fixed vanes are shaped and set at such an angle that they form several small nozzles that discharge the gases at extremely high speeds. The second purpose of the turbine nozzle is to deflect gases so they strike the turbine at most efficient angle for maximum turbine rotation. What is the major difference between turboprop and turbojet engines? A turboprop engine usually has more turbine stages than turbojet engine. In addition to operating the compressor and accessories, the turboprop turbine must also have a drive propeller. What may be the indications if a turbojet engine is out of trim? The engine has high EGT for takeoff. What is a free turbine? A turbine wheel, rather than driving the compressor rotor, drives a propeller or helicopter transmission. What are methods commonly used to accomplish turbine engine compressor field cleaning? Fluid wash and abrasive grit blast. What would the possible cause be for a turbojet or turbofan engine having high EGT, low RPM, and high fuel at all engine pressure ratio settings? Possible turbine damage or loss of turbine efficiency. What factors affect the amount of air going into a gas turbine engine? Throttle, operating speed, fuel burn, N2 speed, airspeed of aircraft. Name one of the three basic ultrasonic inspection methods. Pulse echo, through transmission, resonance. What FAA approval is required when a change is made to the engine principle of operation? A new type certificate must be obtained. What additional inspection should you perform if a cylinder has weak compression? Cylinder leak down test. What is required after a turbine engine experiences exhaust gas temperature exceeding limits? A hot section inspection. What criteria are used to determine the replacement of life-limiting turbine engine components? Cycles, hours, or calendar time? What are the units in an engine fuel flow system? System consists of a transmitter and an indicator for each engine. What type of readout is indicated on a fuel flow system? The indicator is calibrated to record fuel flow in gallons per hour. What exactly does a mass fuel flow transmitter measure? The density of mass of the fuel that flows through it. What does a manifold pressure gauge indicate? Measures absolute pressure in the intake manifold. What is the reason for monitoring fuel flow? In addition to fuel consumption, the operator can determine from fuel flow indication whether the engine is operating at correct fuel-air mixture for a given power setting. What type of tachometer is used in multi-engine airplanes? Alternating current tachometer generators. Where is the carburetor air temperature bulb located? In the air intake passage to the engine. What is the typical acceptable resistance of a cylinder head thermocouple cable? 2 to 8 ohms. When checking the manifold pressure during engine operation, in what position would the prop control be set? Low pitch. What is the possible cause when a turboprop engine oil pressure drops off severely and the oil supply remains the same? Oil pressure transmitter or indicator malfunction? What are the main categories of engine fire protection systems? Spot detection, continuous loop, and flame detectors. Name examples of spot detection type systems. Thermal switch and thermocouple. Describe the operation of a Kitty continuous loop fire detector system. The Kitty continuous loop system has two wires embedded in a special ceramic core within an Inconel tube. One wire acts as an internal ground and the other wire is a hot lead that provides a current. When the ceramic core material heats up, its resistance drops, completing a circuit between the internal wires, lighting a light. Describe a thermal switch fire detector system. Thermal switch systems have one or more lights that are energized by the aircraft's electrical system. When a heat-sensitive thermal switch closes the circuit at a specific time. What two methods are used to discharge fire extinguishing agents? Mechanical and electrical. Name the components of a basic magnetic circuit. Magnetic circuit consists of a permanent multi-pole rotating magnet, soft iron core, and pole shoes. What units make up a DC generator 3-unit regulator? The voltage regulator, current limiter, and reverse current cutout. What method is used to control the voltage of an aircraft alternator? The voltage regulator. How is alternator frequency maintained? By installing a constant speed drive unit between the engine and the alternator. What are the 3 basic types of DC motors? Series motors, shunt motors, compound motors. Name the parts of a DC motor. Armature, brushes, commutator, and field frame. Why should stranded wire be used in power plant applications? It's less likely to fatigue and break from vibrations. What methods are used to control the voltage output of DC aircraft generator? The vibrating type voltage regulator, 3-unit regulator, and carbon pile. The only practical means of regulating generator voltage is to control the strength of the magnetic field. The field strength is determined by the amount of current flowing through the field coils, and the current is controlled by placing some form of variable or intermittent resistance in external field circuit of the generator. Why are multiple generator systems paralleled? To ensure each generator shares the load. What are the components of a direct cranking electrical starter system? Electric motor, reduction gears, and an automatic engaging and disengaging mechanism. What type of DC motor is commonly used for an aircraft engine starter? A series wound motor. Name one type of oil filter used on aircraft engines. Screen, Cuno, canister, or spin-on. What factors must be considered in determining the proper grade of oil to use in a specific engine? Operating load, rotational speeds, and operating temperatures. From what location on a reciprocating engine is the oil temperature usually taken? In either system, the bulb is located where it measures oil temperature before it enters the hot section of the engine. In a dry sump lubrication system, the oil temperature bulb is located anywhere in the oil inlet line between the oil tank and the engine. Wet sump systems have the temperature bulb located where it senses the oil temperature after the oil passes through the oil cooler. What would be an indication of inadequate oil supply? Low oil pressure and high oil temperature. Where can you find the specified grade of oil for a particular aircraft? Oil grade can be found in the airplane flight manual or pilot's operating handbook. What are 2 types of oil coolers used in turbine engine lubrication systems? The air-cooled oil cooler and the fuel-cooled oil cooler. What is the SOAP analysis? SOAP, Spectrometric Oil Analysis Program. Where are carbon seals used in turbine engines? Aircraft gearboxes, air turbine motor starters, and main shaft seals. Why do reciprocating engines require oil with a high viscosity index? Higher viscosity indexes allow for easier starting in cold temperatures and prevents the oil from becoming too thin at operating temperatures to protect bearings under operating loads. Why do reciprocating engines require high viscosity oil? Higher viscosity oil performs better in reciprocating engines because they have large clearances, high operating temperatures, and high bearing pressure. Name some areas of a turbine engine oil system where oil screen filters may be located. Oil pressure system, scavenge system, or just before the oil jets. Name one general type of inertia starter. Hand, electric, and combination hand-electric. What is the purpose of the condenser in a high-tension magneto-electrical system? To prevent arcing at the points. What are the 3 major circuits of a high-tension magneto system? Magnetic circuit, primary circuit, secondary circuit. What are the components of a high-tension magnetic circuit? Permanent rotating magnet, soft iron core, pole shoes. What is the difference between a low tension and a high tension ignition system? In the high tension system, the high voltage is generated in the magneto and flows to plugs through high tension leads. In low tension systems, the low voltage is generated in the magneto and flows through low tension leads to the primary winding of a transformer coil located near each spark plug. There, the voltage is increased to high voltage by a transformer action and is conducted to the plugs by very short, high tension leads. What three conditions are required to fire plugs in a cylinder when the piston is in a prescribed position? The magneto's magnet poles must be in the E-gap position. Breaker points must be open, and the distributor rotor must be aligned with the distributor electrode for that cylinder. What is proper spark plug reach? When the electrode end is in the best position to achieve ignition. What type of ignition system is used in most turbine engines? Electronic capacitor type. What are two types of igniter plugs? Annular gap, a long reach, constrained gap, a short reach. What is the purpose of the dual magneto configuration? For redundancy and safety in case one magneto fails. How can you tell if a starter commutator is dirty or worn? Excessively noisy starter. What are the three events required to fire a spark plug in a cylinder when its piston is in the prescribed position? Magneto and E-gap position, breaker points opening, and the distributor electrically aligned with that cylinder. Name two parts of the starter generator that commonly require periodic inspection to ensure that they do not wear beyond operational limits. The commutator and brushes. Between the field and the armature windings in starter generator, which ordinarily receive current from operation in start mode? Generally, both the field and the armature receive current for operation in start mode. What are the three components of a spark plug? Electrode, insulator, bore. What engine variables are sensed by a hydromechanical fuel unit? Power lever position, RPM, compressor inlet pressure temperature, burner temperature or compressor discharge pressure, and EGT or TIT. What type of fuel control unit is used in a turbine engine? Both hydromechanical and electronic fuel control units are in use today. However, the most common fuel control unit is the hydromechanical type. What is meant by trimming a turbine engine? Adjusting the fuel control for the proper specific gravity of the fuel and for the proper idle and full throttle RPM. When should a turbine engine be trimmed? Whenever there is a loss in engine power or the manufacturer specifies. What specifications are used to trim a turbine engine? The data plate on the engine typically contains the trimming specifications. What are the three types of fuel controls for turbine engines? EEC, electronic engine control, FADEC, full authority digital electronic control, and mechanical. What is the purpose of an accelerating system on a float type carburetor? When the throttle is opened rapidly, the fuel-air mixture will lean out momentarily. To overcome this tendency, a charge of fuel from the accelerating pump will temporarily enrich the mixture in the venturi. What is the function of a metering jet? Its purpose is to limit the fuel flow when the throttle valve is wide open. What is the purpose of the economizer system in a float carburetor? The economizer is essentially a valve which is closed at throttle settings below 60 to 70% of rated power, but provides additional fuel for engine cooling to prevent detonation at higher throttle settings above 60 to 70%. Where does a pressure injection carburetor attain fuel pressure? It obtains fuel pressure from the boost pump for starting and from the engine-driven fuel pump for normal operations. What operates an automatic mixture control on a pressure carburetor? The AMC contains sealed bellows that expand or contract with changes in atmospheric pressure. In what position do you place the mixture control of a pressure injection carburetor to stop the engine? Idle cutoff. What are three types of carburetor icing? Throttle icing, impact icing, fuel evaporation icing. What is the typical fuel pressure in a float type carburetor? 3 to 5 psi. Name some advantages of direct fuel injection systems over conventional carburetor systems. Less danger of induction system icing, improved acceleration, improved fuel distribution, reduced overheating of individual cylinders, better fuel economy. What is the purpose of filters in a fuel system? They are used to prevent foreign matter from entering the carburetor. What two items are adjusted when setting idling conditions on a float carburetor? The throttle stop for idling RPM and the idle mixture through the idle needle valve. What is the purpose of an engine-driven fuel pump? The engine-driven fuel pump always delivers a continuous supply of fuel at the proper pressure during engine operation. What is the most common type of fuel boost pump? Electrically driven centrifugal type pump. What are the functions of the boost pump? First, during starting, the boost pump supplies fuel to the engine pump for starting. Also, they are used to maintain pressure in fuel lines to prevent the fuel from boiling off at altitude. Finally, boost pumps acts as a backup if engine-driven pump fails. What is the purpose of the bypass valve in the engine-driven fuel pump? The bypass valve provides a path around the pump vanes for starting the engine and to allow fuel to bypass the pump in case of pump failure. What is the purpose of using boost pumps in a fuel system? Electric boost pumps are used to supply fuel to a pressure carburetor during engine starting and in case of engine-driven pump failure. What are the three general causes of vapor lock? Low fuel pressure, high fuel temperatures, and excessive fuel turbulence. Turbine engine fuel pumps may be divided into what two distinct system categories? Constant displacement and variable displacement. What category is a turbine engine driven gear type pump? Constant displacement. What type of fuel pump can be made to vary the fuel flow at any speed? Variable displacement. What part of a gas turbine engine fuel system is very susceptible to formation of ice? Fuel filters. Where are fuel filters located? They are located at the fuel pump in line with the system. Last chance filter screens are in the fuel controls. Can you use automotive gasoline in a reciprocating engine in place of avgas? Yes, if you have an STC. What is the purpose of the pressurizing portion of a pressurizing and dump valve? To provide primary and secondary fuel flow to dual-line duplex fuel nozzles. The basic induction system of an aircraft reciprocating engine consists of what components? Consists of an air scoop used to collect the inlet air and ducting that transfer the air to the inlet filter. What are the three major parts of a reciprocating engine induction system? The air scoop, fuel delivery system, and intake manifold. What effect does induction system icing have on engine performance? Induction system icing can cause an engine to act erratically, lose power, and possibly quit. What could be the probable cause of a turbocharger engine that surges? Wastegate or controller malfunction? How does a divergent shaped jet engine inlet affect the air flowing to the engine when an airplane is in subsonic flight? It causes the air velocity to decrease and the pressure to increase. The Venturi-type particle separator found on many turbine-powered helicopters utilizes what characteristic of matter to help remove debris from induction air? Inertia. What other engine characteristics are designed to aid in engine cooling besides cooling fins? The engine cowling and baffles are designed to force air through the cylinder cooling fins. Why is the open and close adjustment during installation of cowl flaps important? For each engine installation, the cowl flaps are set for a tolerance that will prevent them to open and close in the correct amount to keep the cylinder head temperature within allowable limits. What is the purpose of blast tubes? To direct jets of cooling air to accessories of the engine that have high heat concentrations such as a generator. On radial engines, they duct air onto rear spark plug elbows of each cylinder to prevent overheating of the ignition leads. What are the main reasons that excessive heat in reciprocating engines is undesirable? Excessive heat shortens the life of the engine parts, impairs lubrication, and affects combustion. Describe the augmenter system. The augmenter system is used to help keep the temperature of air-cooled engines down by using exhaust gas energy to draw cool air over the engine. Where must most cooling air flow to cool a turbine engine? Through the inside of the engine. What are two general types of exhaust systems used in reciprocating aircraft engines? Short stack and collector system. What are the three components of an exhaust augmenter system? Bell mouth, sleeve, and vanes. How are ceramic coated exhaust stacks cleaned? By degreasing method only. What is the usual cause of muffler and heat exchanger failures? Usually caused by concentrated areas of thermal stress or vibration stress. What factors are affected if the area of the exhaust nozzle of a turbine engine is changed? The size of the exhaust nozzle affects both the engine performance and EGT. Why do you disassemble and inspect collector type exhaust? Exhaust system failure can result in carbon monoxide poisoning. What are the components of a typical turbine exhaust nozzle? Tail cone, exhaust duct, support struts. The propeller control system is divided into two types of control. What are they? The control system is divided into two types of control, one for flight and one for ground operations. What are the two types of propeller configurations? Tractor and pusher. What are the aerodynamic forces and loads acting on a rotating propeller blade? Centrifugal force, aerodynamic twisting, centrifugal twisting, torque bending, and thrust bending forces. Why do you put the blades of a counterweight propeller into high pitch before stopping the engine? In high pitch position, the cylinder moves and covers the piston. In this position, the piston is protected from dirt and moisture in the air. How is feathering accomplished on a constant speed counterweight propeller? By releasing governor oil pressure on the counterweights. The feathering spring moves the blades to the feathered position and the oil returns to the engine. What adjustments are power plant mechanics allowed to make to the prop governor? Only the maximum RPM stop. What happens to a constant speed feathering propeller when the propeller's governor's oil pressure drops to 0 psi? It returns to the feathered position. What two forces are balanced in a propeller governor in an on-speed condition? Speeder spring and flyweights. What three things does a typical constant speed propeller governor accomplish when operating? Boosts engine oil pressure before it enters the propeller hub, controls the amount of oil that flows to the propeller, sets the rotational speed of the engine. What may be the result of installing piston rings incorrectly? Excessive oil consumption.